Welcome to Serve Then Sell. This is a sister podcast of Run Lift Mom, and I'm Susie Goodwin, host of Run Lift Mom and direct seller. This show is a passion project from a passion project, and it's intended to help you find your people. If you are looking for folks in the MLM, network marketing, or direct sales industry who don't send hey girl messages and have a sincere desire to serve, you have found them. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Serve Then Sell. I'm so excited to bring you a full interview with today's guest, Brenda Ster. Brenda became the #1 sponsor in her direct sales brand within 6 months of joining. She maintained that position for 2 years, earned multiple incentive trips and rewards, and grew a team of nearly 1,000 entirely on social media and completely based on attraction marketing and, Serve Then Sell principles. First and foremost, Brenda leads with relationship and community building. With her acclaimed social marketing methods, she's provided both video-based as well as live coaching to thousands of independent consultants to bring their businesses online, differentiate themselves from others who sell the same thing or similar products or services, and build loyal communities of customers, fans, and friends. You guys, Brenda has led many a direct sales consultant to success. I brought Brenda on to, first of all, speak about privacy on social media, as well as how to network with others, and even touch on the difference between private and public communities. I want you to know this episode was originally aired on Run Lift Mom podcast, the sister to this show, although it was only in a snippet as part of a masterclass. The full episode is right here, so without further ado, I am honored to say, here is my friend and coach, Brenda Ster. All right, Brenda Ster, welcome back to the Run Lift Mom podcast.
Hey, Susie. Hey.
You know, when I was thinking about a masterclass episode for people sharing personal wellness and fitness journeys, you are the first person I thought about because you are wonderful with social media and stories.
Well, social media and stories maybe, but not so much on the fitness side, girl. Come on.
Oh, I have enjoyed watching your personal journey when you're doing those races at Disney.
Oh, I'm telling you. Well, maybe that's true. I do talk a lot about mental health and as a part of physical health. So that's true. You're right. I do talk about things that are health related.
Brenda, a question a lot of folks have is actually about privacy, like social media in general. If I'm a mom of 4 kids, how can I retain some of that privacy for my family, but still share myself on social?
So I think it's very, very much of a black and white line. When you're deciding what you want to share on social media, it's really making a very clear distinction as to what you want to be public and what you want to be private. So I, for example, I have a very, very black and white line as to what's public and what's private. So people feel like they know me, but if you really pay attention, I really rinse and repeat the exact same stories over and over and over and over and over again. So I don't talk about my family, my children, or my husband's health. I don't talk about things that are about my marriage. I don't photograph anything in my house. It's not a public space. I don't ever post where my kids go to school or really geographically, specifically where we live. I don't post things that would be controversial, political, overtly inflammatory. I'm very, very black and white on what I post and what's public and what's not. So what I've done is created a story, a brand of who I am. And if you pay attention, it's really the exact same story over and over and over again. So people feel like they know me, but really only know a very specific sliver of what I want them to know. So I personally choose to post my kids' pictures on social media. Some people don't. Maybe they say, I only want to post the backs of my kids' heads. Well, that's okay. That's your line. That's what's public and that's what's your black and white line. Some people say, I will not post anything about my family on social media. Perfectly okay. Then you're going to create a public space around your story, your brand, your object association, your emotional tone, and decide exactly what you want to be public and what you want to be private.
I love this. I think it gives a lot of folks comfort in terms of they can share themselves, but not have to dish out everything.
Exactly. And, in the health space, now, I talk very openly about my personal journey with anxiety and depression. And I have struggled with it for years and years and years since my first child, when I was pregnant with my first child, and I had anxiety and I was claustrophobic when I was pregnant. And there's nothing weirder than being claustrophobic in your own skin, all the way up to postpartum depression with both kids and through that whole journey. And then with work anxiety, I don't sleep very well. I've talked very openly about my personal health journey and it took me a while to get there. It took me a while to say, okay, am I going to be sharing something that is actually going to make me look weak or vulnerable? But in reality, what people forget is that vulnerability is perceived as strength. So when I'm sharing something with my followers, more often than not, they will say like, wow, I had no idea, Brenda. I didn't know you were struggling with this. This makes you so much more accessible, so much more relatable. I feel like you're going through the same thing as me. And yeah, it's a connective moment. People, what we view in ourselves as weakness, other people will look at and say, wow, she's so brave to share that. She's so brave to admit that. So we tend to see vulnerability in ourselves. We see those same exact things as strength in others. So I've really been very open about what I've shared about my personal journey, but I don't share anything about my kids or my husband. It's not mine to share. And on social media, I'm very happily married. Am I happily married 100% of the time? Nobody is. Come on. But I don't share any of that online.
Right.
So it's part of my story. So it's intentional. And it's a little bit of, we've all seen the social media graphics that never compare someone else's highlight reel to your inside story. Mm-hmm. And the reality is we're all cultivating a highlight reel, and that's part of what the attraction is of why we are inspired by others. And I think there's a part of social marketing and branding that has to be a shiny highlight reel, but also has to include a little bit of the inside flaw. That's what makes somebody both relatable and aspirational. And that's really the line that we want to strive for. If somebody is 100% relatable, but not aspirational, this is somebody I want to be friends with, but not necessarily somebody I want to do business with. If somebody's 100% aspirational, but not relatable at all, they tend to come off as arrogant. So we're sort of looking for the line of how can I be both aspirational and relatable to create a connection of know, like, and trust.
If I'm hearing you correctly, Brenda, it's, we can be comfortable sharing the things that we're comfortable sharing, but then also if it's appropriate to be vulnerable with the people we're connected with, that's okay, but it's on our timeline. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also a line of when you're sharing something vulnerable, there's still an aspirational transformation story inside of it. If I'm sharing, I'm struggling with anxiety and depression, and woe is me, I'm a martyr and a victim, is a very, very different story than I'm struggling with anxiety and depression, but here's what I'm doing to overcome it. Here's what I'm working toward. Here's the line, and here's the progress that I'm pushing myself toward. Here's what I want to inspire you with. That's a very different story. So a lot of people on social media will say things like, well, I can say whatever I want online. Well, yeah, you absolutely can. You can say whatever you want, and your right of freedom of speech ends where my right of interpretation begins. So, and then I decide if I want to do business with you, or I want to follow you, or I want to be inspired. So in the health space, what I coach my clients on who are on health journeys is, I'll use weight loss as an example. And I have some clients who are health coaches. And I'm not a health coach. Let me be really clear. I'm not a health coach. I live on Oreos and Diet Coke. So, and Susie, you're very inspirational because you're a runner, and I run, but I really kind of walk, run, jog, run. I do run Disney for the medals, not even remotely, because I love running. But I have health clients, and I coach about how to share their story, because there's something very, very transformational and inspiring in somebody who's on a health journey. So the joy is in the journey. People want to see the progress story. They want to see the before and after. They want to see the momentum. They don't want to see oh, woe is me, everything's miserable and my life sucks, is very different than I'm really working toward improving something and I'm going to report progress and hold myself accountable to my audience. That's very different. So it's not just, it's people who think, well, I'm not perfect, therefore I can't coach others. No, you can coach others because you are working on a progress story.
Yes.
You're sharing the journey. So what you decide to share, I think the line is that what you're sharing has to be viewed through the lens of something that's inspirational or aspirational. And that is really what personal branding is about. We're putting content out there that's designed to inspire, uplift, motivate, educate, inform. We're putting content out there that truly is designed to serve or help others. So if my story can help others in some way, connect with their own success mindset, connect with their own feeling less alone because they're in their own anxiety space. And that's something I can say, listen, I've been there. I've literally been in those shoes. Let me tell you how I did it. And let me tell you it's okay. And we will get through this together and I'll be here to listen. We create the aspirational story that somebody is going to be motivated to follow. So when you decide what you want that to be, and you decide this is my public story, you just ride that story all day long over and over and over and over again. And you're just sharing different angles of the story that are contextual for that moment. Now you might be bringing in certain objects that you continually reference. I call that object association. You might be bringing in emotional association of things that you want people to feel in your story, but you're really simply telling the same story over and over and over and over again, that they deserve progress, they deserve health, they deserve success, whatever your primary message of motivation is.
I know this is helping so many people out there that are sharing their personal journeys online. Can you clarify for us, Brenda, like some folks have like a private setting over on Facebook, maybe it's a challenge group or a VIP page, as well as a public setting. Can you tell us, do we need both and why?
I think you do need both. A group or a page is primarily your public marketing, you're marketing yourself. Your group is your community engaging with each other. And they serve two different purposes. Your page is really exactly that, public marketing. You're sharing your message to the masses, a public channel, your Instagram feed, your public Facebook page. That is your message and your directional messaging to your audience. Your community is where you're inviting conversation with each other to build those relationships with each other. So they really serve different purposes. So in a community setting, what you're inspiring people to do is you're sharing your story and inviting them to share it with each other to create more of an uplifting community experience. So this is where we see people cheering for each other and creating accountability partners and creating, especially in the health space, creating accountability, sharing each other's successes, cheering for each other, coming back and sharing tips and ideas of what's working for them. So as the moderator of a group, your job as the moderator is to facilitate those conversations and help the community get to know and engage with each other. So they really serve two different purposes. A page is really you communicating with your audience and them with you. In your group is you're helping people communicate and build relationships with you and each other. I think they are both very valuable, very important, and two really complementary, sort of overlapping circles in the Venn diagram of where they fit in your social strategy.
I noticed that you use the language moderator when referring to your own role in your group, and I want to make sure people hear that.
I think that's really key because people, if you think of your group as just a place for you to go live and sell things, you're missing the opportunity of having people connect with each other. So, and that's very much of a moderating role. So this just came up literally in one of my groups yesterday. Somebody questioned or posted a question in one of my groups yesterday. And the question was basically, how do I get my community talking to each other? They talk to me. When I post, they respond to me, but they don't talk to each other. And it was a really great question. It's a very insightful question. And what the challenge is she's thinking of her group primarily as a sales space. If it's primarily a sales space, it's a promotional space for you to go live or you to do sales or things like that, they're going to see it as a sales space. They're waiting for you to talk to them. But if you're posting conversational questions and you're moderating the conversation and posting things that are, hey, let's share each other's successes, or what tips are you trying this weekend to try something new? They're going to start talking to each other. And that takes time. It takes time to train a community on what you expect and how you want them to engage with you and each other. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't just bring people into a group and suddenly we're all friends. Social psychology is very predictable. We all come online. We all peek inside the members list to see if we know anybody in this group. If I don't know anybody in here, I'm not likely to dive into deep, vulnerable conversations with strangers. And as the moderator, as the leader, I have to be vulnerable first to set the tone, to create the safe space that other people can follow. Because they know that, okay, well, she shared a really vulnerable story. How did people respond to that? Because we're all sort of consciously and subconsciously watching these things all the time on social media. Is this a place where I can be safe? Is this a place where I can create connection? Is my story going to be validated or shamed? Because there are places online where people will not share a story because they're going to be shamed. Right. So we really have to look at the kind of community we want to create and take the ownership of how we want people to engage with each other. And your story is what especially a vulnerable story, is what leads that charge. You post your own story. And this is why I share my story openly all the time. I share my story of how I've gotten to where I started in direct selling, how I moved into coaching, my personal health journey. I know exactly what is public in my story. And I also am very, very crystal clear on what is not public. So, and once you have that nailed in, once you have that really dialed in, and you're really clear on what I either share verbally, what I post pictures of, how vulnerable I'm willing to be, but my vulnerability has a thread of inspiration in it. My vulnerability is designed to help somebody else feel not alone. I never post vulnerability with the perspective of woe is me. I post vulnerability with the intention of this is where I am and here's what I'm trying to do about it. Yeah. So there's always a thread of hopefully something of hope or motivation. So, the community space, a group space, where people miss the mark in groups is they treat their group like a page and it's just an extension of a sales channel versus thinking of a group truly as a place to facilitate conversations between their members. And when you do that, that's where people make friends. That's where people say, my friends live in my computer because I facilitated the space for them to create those connections. And yes, it's okay if people have friendships in my group that supersede me. I want them to have friendships in my groups that supersede me. I don't want them to be like, oh, well, I'm only friends because Brenda helped it. No, I want you to be friends and create connections and build your businesses through the community that I create. That's a different goal. So, and that really truly is a moderator, not just an administrator leader. It's a moderator of moderating the conversation and helping people feel safe in my community space.
You alluded to it when you said, hey, this question came up in my group, but then you're also reminding me, Brenda, I am in your Elite Suite coaching group and I have made so many friends. I love you something fierce. I've made a lot of friends in your group as well, though. Can you tell me, why is it I'm, for example, I've got a health and wellness vibe to Run Lift Mom. Why is it important that I network with someone who maybe sells essential oils or does crafting outside of direct sales or makes signs or sells makeup?
Sure. Well, everybody is more than their business, right? Everybody is more than their business. And for a lot of direct sellers and small business owners, the majority, their business is a part-time or a side thing. And most of us have other lives. We have full-time families, we have full-time jobs, we have full-time hobbies, we have full-time interests. And the more we can connect on those other levels, on those things that we have in common, those shared values, those shared interests, the more we create friendships. And we do business with people we know, like, and trust. We do business with our friends. So if I'm somebody who likes to cook, for example, and I have children, and I befriend somebody who also likes to cook, and I enjoy watching her cooking live shows. And I don't particularly sell cooking products, but I love watching her shows. And she's funny and she's interesting, and she brings her kids into the show, and she's trying a new recipe. that's inspiring me to try something new as well. So that is where we start to make those friendship connections. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. The other major value is specifically for people in direct selling. And I know, Susie, your audience is bigger than direct sales, but for the purpose of just this example, when we're in direct sales, our news feeds tend to be consumed with people who sell the exact same thing we do. So everybody, you're in all of the brand groups, all the upline and downline groups, all the graphics groups, all the buy sell trade groups. You're in all the team groups. You're in every single group for your company. And your news feed is filled with people who sell the exact same thing you do. You're not meeting new people when you're swimming in the brand pond. You're not meeting new people who could be great business partners, collaborators, customers, connections, referrals. You have to swim in new ponds. You have to go make new friends. So one of the things I really try to facilitate in my communities is the intentional process of relationship building. I post things intentionally that spark conversation. They're not just, I'm a coach. Yes, I'm a business coach. And there are posts that I make that are very one directional. Like, this is how I think you should do this process. But there's also very intentional conversational posts that are, tell me what you're working on. Let's share successes. Let's share brag flags. Let's share ideas. Let's just have some fun. So there's intentional posts that facilitate those relationship building moments, because we have to meet people who sell something beyond what we sell, because social media algorithms work such that you tend to see more of what you engage on. If the only thing you're engaging on are things from the company, the brand, or the niche that you sell in, you're not going to be meeting new people. And we need to meet new people if our businesses are going to grow. So we have to be networking beyond the small pond. We have to swim to the ocean. We have to find new fish. We have to be making new connections continually and thinking about ways that we can serve and share before we think about, well, what can this relationship do for me in business? We have to thinking about relationship value and creating collaborations. A great transaction is one where everybody wins. So, Susie, we're doing a podcast together. This is on your business platform, but I'm sure I will share it on my business platform, and we both win because we're both meeting new audiences. This is a good transaction for both of us. So a good relationship is where we're continually building all of our network connections, meeting new people, sharing our message, going back to our story of what we want to be, our public and our inspirational story. Your story is going to, transcend you personally. Your story is going to walk into the room before you do. Your character precedes you online because somebody who knows somebody knows you. So this is so important when we think about social marketing, and why it's so important that once you decide what your public story is, it precedes you everywhere you go. There will be somebody her story is amazing. You absolutely have to invite her to be a guest, a host, a collaborator, a hostess, a friend. You have to invite her, versus what you don't want to happen. She was on this one thing a year ago and she was so awful and whiny, and don't invite her. What you decide is public, and how you decide you want your vulnerability to come through as an inspirational message, and how you use that to facilitate community building on both your public channels as well as your community spaces. And it is absolutely what I am passionate about, as you can tell.
I can. And Brenda, I know that the listener right now is inspired to curate their story so they can uplift others, create that community, and then also network with others. Guys, that's where creativity and innovation is born. So I love that you said the pond ocean thing. The ocean is where it's at, y'all.
That's all it is. We get so stuck about thinking that our pond is the end all be all place, because that's where we're trying to get people to go, right? We want people to follow our social funnels and come back and follow our community channels and follow me on Instagram and follow me on my Facebook page. And we want to grow our own pond. And we totally miss the fact that this giant invisible gorilla is the fact that, well, you have to row your boat up to the ocean and bring them back. You have to go up to the ocean and wave your flag and put your billboard up and say, listen, this is my value. Want to come back and hang out with my value? Take this side turn and follow this little side stream to my pond. So we sit in our pond and then wonder why nobody's coming to hang out and do business with us, when we totally forget the fact that there's this giant ocean out there called the entire internet. We have zero geographic boundaries, and we can serve, inspire, motivate, and uplift everybody if we're brave enough to get our message out there.
Thank you so much, Brenda. I know that you're inspiring us to find that courage and get brave. Listener, I want to remind you that I have got a robust show notes. And so all you've got to do is click the hyperlink that says details or swipe up, gonna depend on the player you're in, so that you can learn more about Brenda and connect with her.
I love it, Susie. Thank you so much. I absolutely love what you do. I love that you're inspiring. You're inspiring in a new way. You're sharing value in a new way. I absolutely love being a part of it. Thank you for inviting me.
Brenda, Ster, thank you so much for speaking with us about social strategy. I think anyone in any industry can benefit from that, especially our friends in fitness, health, and wellness. You guys, if you want to connect further with Brenda, you can go to the show notes. Depending on the player that you're in, you're either going to click details or swipe up. You can also find her at her website, theelitesuite.com. That's SUITE, theelitesuite.com, and get your free Kickstart Your Social Marketing Strategy workbook. The workbook is called Kickstart Your Social Marketing Strategy. You guys, this is required reading on my direct selling team, and I think it's a fantastic place for new direct sellers to start, as well as tenured or seasoned direct sellers to get inspired. Until I speak with you next time, remember to serve, then sell. Susie Goodwin here. If you're podcast coaching with me, I'm going to recommend Anchor every single time as your host, and here's why. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And then Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You guys, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it quite literally has everything you need to become a podcaster right in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. I am thrilled to announce a new partner on Serve Then Sell, and that is Audible. I've been an Audible member for over 10 years, and my favorite part is the gift of time. I am able to do things that help move my passion project forward while also learning and developing myself. You guys, if you're not familiar with Audible, it's got a wonderful app with a note-taking feature. You can download audio titles and listen offline, anytime, anywhere. If you want to try Audible for free, visit audibletrial.com/runliftmom. That's audibletrial.com/runliftmom. RUNLIFTMOM.